Stay tuned for On Cue for KSMQ Public Television. I'm Eric Olson. Today we meet a special woman who trains local leaders to be better at what they do. And we have a very special guest who resembles none other than Abraham Lincoln, Honest Abe. We'll find out why he is so compelled to make history come alive. That's coming up On Cue.
Local ideas that matter to you, sharing our region's unique point of view, telling the stories that you never knew. On Cue, on Cue, on Cue.
Wherever we go, that seems like there's someone in charge, whether it's at home or the office. They're considered our leaders. But leaders sometimes need pointers or a little help to get through a tough situation, and that's when they can go to someone like certified leadership coach Mary Holtorf. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. Great to. I've known you for many years in your leadership past too. You know, in Austin, and you started getting into this. You met a fella named John Maxwell, as I understand it, and I should know that name, I guess. He's very well known, but I confess I did not know who this person was. Tell us about how you got started.
Well, when I was principal, my background is in education. So I was a fifth grade teacher, principal, loved technology. And when I was principal, I just read a book by John Maxwell. And he has about 85, 90 books out there.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so you can pick up some.
I need the help. Thank you very much.
And I loved his style of leadership. And so I really tried to emulate that. And when I decided that I wanted to take this path through coaching, training, and teaching of leadership skills, I knew that I wanted to go the route of John Maxwell. He's a servant leader, has just hands-on, very, he always says put the cookies on the low shelf for everyone to be able to understand the leadership principles. Leadership can be complicated. It's been an ongoing journey for me, starting young. I loved leadership. And so I decided to go be certified with John Maxwell, and I just been growing and learning since then from him.
So this was you learned the basics from him, and now you offer it to other clients around Moore County or the area.
Yes.
I'm going to throw an analogy at you. I don't know if it's true or not, but in a past life for me, I was a reporter, and I would fly in our helicopter quite a bit. The station had a helicopter, and the pilot told me, it's the easiest thing in the world to fly a helicopter with no training, except when something goes unusual or something goes wrong, and then within seconds, you can have a real serious problem. And I kind of think about that in my limited knowledge of management. We have great people that I lead, but then sometimes there'll be something and you have to make a quick decision, and it seems like that's when the training really would come in handy.
Yes. Leaders are really challenged right now, just getting off of COVID. That was something totally new, that people are just like, what do we do? I mean, everybody was uncertain, and they looked to leaders to try to figure it out, and leaders are like, we've never been through anything like this. With the Great Resignation, those kind of things, that leaders are challenged right now to become better leaders, to become a leader that everybody wants to follow. Because we all have leaders in our lives that, like Abraham Lincoln, who's coming next, one of my favorite presidents. And you look to these people and you say, what have they done right? And what can I take from them and use it in my own leadership? And so understanding that leadership is challenging. It's something I don't think I'll ever, I like to look at leaders and say, okay, what are they doing? What are they doing that's working? What are they doing that's not working? It's just something that I enjoy doing.
So is that how you begin it with a client, for instance? Tell me what you do well or something? Or how is it that you
Yes.
approach? You work a lot with folks in Mower County government.
Yes.
So when you work with those leaders, how do you begin the conversation?
With Mower County is, I do all their leadership training there right now. And I start with a DISC assessment, which is an assessment that helps them understand themselves better. And we've all got these kind of personalities, and it measures the D, the I, the S, and the C. A lot of companies use that. It's a self-awareness tool because if you don't know yourself very well, you can't lead. You can't, first of all, lead yourself, which is the hardest person to lead, and you can't lead other people. And so this DISC assessment really helps people understand themselves and then start to understand the people that they're working with. I just was there this morning with a group coaching, and it was amazing. We were trying to understand, okay, why is this person like this? And then what are our blind spots in leadership? It's really quite fascinating. So that's where I usually start, is with a DISC assessment and an awareness tool, because leaders sometimes aren't that self-aware.
Or we've been pushed in. We weren't
Yes.
trying for this position or
Right.
whatever.
Yes.
You know, you were in an office or you were in a profession, and suddenly there you are. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Like, you could be a really good accountant, and the better accountant you are, you move up in the chain, and it's like, I don't know how to manage people. I only know accounting, and I'm really good at it. But then, so that's where I come in, is I can come in and help someone with their leadership skills, because leadership skills can be taught. A lot of people think, well, you have to be a born leader. No, you can teach the skills that you need.
So is there psychology, or is it very, do have meetings every week, talk to people once a month? I mean, that's simplistic, but is it
Yeah.
just that kind of thing?
That's a great question, because some of it is simplistic, but some of it is, like, for instance, McKinsey and company does, they do surveys on why people are leaving their workplace, or what the culture of the workplace is like. And I just read one last week that said, this Great Resignation, people are leaving because they feel their leaders don't care for them. And I thought, they're leaving for that? That can be taught, of course. Add value and be kind to your workers. But if you look at that and say they're leaving because they don't feel cared for, that's important to understand. And it's way different. Leadership is different from now. The 1950s, you're a totally different leader. Now it's people want to know that you care about them, and that you really, like, if they're going to leave, you're going to be like, that's too bad, you're going to leave.
And with younger people, though, that you hire, there's, because of maybe COVID or technological, maybe it's society, but they want to have options. I want to work at home.
Yes.
Why do I have to be in an office every day? And the whole social cohesion piece that builds an office is
Yeah.
not always recognized by, now I don't want to just blame it on youth, but these days, when you have that option to do some of your work at home, to try to teach that that's not the way we build an effective group, or do you think that can be done?
Right. More and more research is coming out that in order to build that effective team, you need to be in the office at some point. If it's 3 days a week, and that we're all in the office 3 days a week, 2 days a week, you can work from home. That might allow that flexibility. Leaders have to think outside the box, because what is going to help people stay? You have to understand this new generation, that they may not want to ever come in the office, but research is showing that many companies are saying, come back into the office, because you're not having those conversations, like those sidebar conversations about creativity and, hey, I just thought of this idea. We're not having that because you're on Zoom. So I think there's a balance that we can come to, and I think it's up to leaders to be open to the balance, but also to be clear that we want to build this team. So let's figure out how to build the team we need to be in the office at some point. So, yeah.
And we're speaking with Mary Holtorf about leadership here on Cue. Two other little overlays in the time we have left.
Sure.
The smallness of the market and nonprofit versus for-profit management. I don't know if there's a difference that you've distinguished, but where there's a whole retention challenge for a nonprofit leader like myself when people have choices that might be more money. We're in a small town, maybe they want to be in a big town, and it's a nonprofit.
Right. There are a lot of options out there for people who are looking for jobs. And so they're probably looking at, do I want to live in a small town? If not, you're out. Or the mission. Does the mission speak to me? Like working here at KSMQ, it's like, what is your mission? And if your mission is something I can get on board with, younger people are really mission driven instead of money driven. And would they like the money? Of course. But they want to do something that's going to be meaningful and really know that the work they do is contributing to the mission. If they're
Okay, that's unique. Is that unique? Is that all young people, or is that new to this kind of generation?
well, it's I've noticed the younger generation coming up like that. That they really want to know, am I making a difference, and how can I make a difference to your mission?
I've heard that they, instead of going to meetings in social, like in organizations, service organizations, there'd be much more interest in like going and fixing or planting the trees or
Yes.
whatever it is than the weekly meetings.
Right. Yeah. That's why our service clubs and that do so much here in Austin that it's like, are we going to be able to attract those new people? And what does it look like? A weekly meeting? Maybe not. So they're really, the millennials, what they are doing is they are helping us rethink the workplace. And I'm not opposed to that. I think that we can rethink the workplace and make it a better place if leaders are open to making those changes.
So we have two resources for you. Anybody interested would be John Maxwell,
Yes.
who you can just Google and learn things from him,
Yep.
like I will learn because I didn't know. And then your organization in Austin for Mower County. Tell folks how you can get in touch.
Sure. I have a Facebook page, Leadership Development Resources. I also have a website. It's ldr-ship.com. So they can get a hold of me any which way.
Well, it's exciting work. Thank you for being part of it.
Love it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Most of us remember being in history class, learning about the founding fathers of our country, including Abraham Lincoln. Well, today we are privileged to have with us in full costume, educator, costumed historical interpreter, and author, Bryce Stenzel. Welcome, Bryce.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here.
And we're this is Bryce mode at first here. We'll start in Bryce mode, and then we'll go into Abraham Lincoln mode in just a minute. So it's wonderful to have you here. How did you get interested in doing this? You've had a interest in history since childhood, really.
Yes, my father was a World War II veteran, and so I wanted to find out what it was that made him so patriotic. And I thought there had to be other people that, felt the way he did, and sure enough there were. And I started reading about the founding fathers, as you mentioned. But Abraham Lincoln was always a source of interest to me. From the time I was 5 years old, actually, learning about him in kindergarten. And it might have been the face. He's got a very interesting face. And I've noticed this with young people, even in my own career as a costume historical interpreter. They seem to gravitate toward Lincoln, and he's like a fatherly figure, somebody you want to climb up on his lap. In fact, as a little boy, I thought I could do that with the Lincoln Memorial, not realizing that it's 19 feet tall.
And he's from the Midwest, Illinois.
Yes, yes. Well, and growing up in Mankato, I was born actually in Mankato and grew up in rural Mankato, but being from that area, we have an infamous event that took place in 1862,
Right.
which Lincoln was part of, but Lincoln actually took it upon himself, and even as a boy, this impressed me, that the President of the United States was willing to intervene and find out what was going on in far-off Minnesota. And it turned out that I was correct about that. There were supposed to be 303 Native American men executed for their participation in the U.S.-Dakota War of 1862. Well, Lincoln took that list and actually appointed, remember, he's an attorney, so he appointed a legal team to review these convictions, and he ended up pardoning 265 of those original 303, so that left 38. We always hear a lot about the 38 Dakota that were executed. What about the 265 that were pardoned? And so that was of interest to me.
Sure.
And of course, emancipation, freeing the slaves, that
All of it.
all of it.
One of the leaders of our country,
he was
for
a
sure.
he was a freedom fighter, just like my father was, or at least that's how I saw it.
So today, how do you teach? Where are you in, like elementary schools, or what's your normal routine?
Well, I'm actually licensed to teach 5th through 12th grade social studies, which I do. I work in St. Clair, but I also work a lot with elementary students. In fact, my career started when I was getting my teaching degree back in 1990. We had student observation, which meant you go and learn what, in this case, elementary students were doing, even though I was going to be teaching more, or thought I was going to be teaching older students. They had us observe elementary to see the age progression, and I'm really glad they did, because I actually enjoy that age as well. But it just so happened that, and we were also supposed to design our own lesson plan. Well, it just so happened that the day I was supposed to teach this happened to be February 12th. And so I came as a costume historical interpreter, and the rest is history, so to speak. That was over 30 years ago.
Is that the authentic size of the hat? Because that's
Yes.
like higher, taller than your face. Take it out. Let's
Yes,
get a look
yes,
at that.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And
So
Lincoln-
that was the style of the day.
Lincoln was noted for his stovepipe hats, and he was tall to begin with, and of course that just accentuated it that much more. Now there's different styles. This one happens to be made of felt, but he also had one made of beaver fur, which I have an authentic beaver fur hat. It's a little bit shorter than this one, but people seem to prefer, they like the tall hat, because that's the Lincoln of legend.
So
with the,
for the warmth, the beaver, like in the wintertime, or no, or just style?
it was style.
Oh.
In fact, beaver hats were stylish long before Lincoln. That's what opened this part of the country, through the fur trade with the French and the Native Americans and so on. And then that trend just continued. But by Lincoln's time, they were starting to use other materials because of beaver fur was beginning to run out in many places. So then they came up with silk, and in this case, this one's wool. So there's different materials that they can be made out of. But these tall hats were, that was very stylish. A well-dressed gentleman is supposed to have one of these.
And the watch, the pocket watch.
Yes.
Is that another common of the people in that day?
Yes, very common. And this actually happens to be a replica of Lincoln's watch. It has the second hand on it. And if you look at it carefully,
Wait, maybe. Yeah, just stay right there. Stay there.
you could actually see that the jeweler he got it from was headquartered in Springfield, Illinois, which was his hometown.
Oh.
And then if you open the back side of the watch, there's actually an inscription, "Thank God we still have a government." It says the jeweler actually put that in to Lincoln's watch. This was a gift that was given him, upon his election to the presidency. So it's one of the things he carried with him. And many people have seen the Steven Spielberg movie Lincoln, and they know that in the movie they actually show an image of Lincoln's watch, and then you hear the ticking sound. That's actually his watch that's ticking. They took a sound bite of his actual watch. And there was a big controversy some years ago whether that inscription was really inside the original watch. Well, somebody got brave enough finally to open the back, just like I did. Somebody actually opened his, and sure enough, it was there. So that legend is true.
And the end of his life is, of course, a very big part of our
Yes.
history too. The assassination.
Yes, unfortunately, and I've been fortunate enough to actually go to Ford's Theater several times, and I've been there actually on 3 of the 4 anniversaries when Good Friday fell on April 14th. That happened in 1995, 2006, 2017, and it'll happen again in 2028. So guess where I'll be that April 14th of 2028.
So there's a ceremony. Is there an event there?
They do some programming. Yes, the National Park Service has a skit that they put on. They don't show all of it, but they actually have first-person presenters such as myself come out and actually talk about different aspects of the assassination, who was in the audience that night, some of the actors that were there, and so forth.
Even though you've been doing this for so long, do you learn new things all the time that you
Yes.
bring into your presentation?
Oh yes, I always try to learn new things.
So there's history out there that you haven't found yet about him.
Yes. For example, just recently I came across a letter that was written by a Dakota war prisoner. Now, this was someone who survived the execution in 1862, but then was exiled to, actually it was Davenport, Iowa, and then they were shipped up the Missouri River out to Santee, Nebraska area, there's still a reservation there. These would be the descendants of these Dakota that were here. But one of the prisoners actually wrote a letter when news of Lincoln's assassination reached them, because eventually it did. There was certainly delay in communication in those days, but the word did eventually reach them, in 1865 that Lincoln had been assassinated. And this gentleman wrote a very poignant letter describing how this was a very unfortunate set of circumstances, and that Lincoln had done a lot for the native people. I mean, now couple this with the current attitude that Lincoln didn't do anything for anybody, which is untrue. Unfortunately, our history has
changed a little
the
bit.
pendulum has swung. The revisionists have changed it quite a bit from where Lincoln was seen. And immediately after his assassination, I mean, it's understandable, but it was almost too much the other way. He was compared to Christ and so on because he was killed on Good Friday.
History's
So
a pendulum.
So it's
that
gone
comes
from
back
that.
and forth.
It's gone from that extreme to the other extreme. Oh, Lincoln didn't do anything for anybody. He's an executioner. This and that.
Well, and people like you will have it come back the other way and keep spreading the accurate information.
That's my goal
Now-
as a historian.
Yes, folks, we are going to have a demonstration right now, and you can prepare yourself for in character with as if you're addressing us. But I want to first read how you can get more information, or if you'd like to reach out to Bryce personally. It's an email address. It's Bryce, BRYCEO, right? Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Seen that?
Correct.
Stenzel, STENZEL @gmail.com, or the Minnesota History Center. History.
Minnesota Heritage Publishing.
Heritage
It's
Publishing, sorry.
www.mnheritage.org.
Okay, now what are you going to take us out with doing?
I'm going to share a excerpt. This would be the closing paragraph of Lincoln's first inaugural. So I will share that with you right now. So imagine
Bryce
this.
Stenzel.
I am loath to close. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. the mystic cords of memory stretching from every battlefield and every patriot grave to every living hearth and hearthstone all over this broad land, will yet swell the chorus of union when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us on Q. For KSMQ, I'm Eric Olson. See you next time.